The IPL 1000, of course, just took place last weekend, and we have a bit of a shakeup in terms of what teams are the most popular on the competitive scene and on the ranked ladder. I'm going to go over them for you nice and quick, our top 5 teams from the IPL. Number 5 is actually a newcomer to the list. It was not here last week. It is actually a Scion-based composition with Invokers. This is Toxic Invokers. So what a lot of people have been doing, bunkering up into a corner, loading up on Scions, loading up on Invokers, and just trying to out-sustain any of the fire, any of the rogue, any damage that's coming on through, and just eventually letting your Fistos and your late game Invokers really kind of carry these fights. And it becomes nearly an impenetrable wall if you can actually land this. And a big thing that was happening as well with the IPL is that not a lot of these units were really truly contested. The only one that's, I guess, really heavily contested would be the Gnarl, because you want Gnarl onto rogue teams as well. But this team is still very, very effective if you have a Twine. As long as you get that Verdant proc, that is a-okay. But a lot of people have been basically using the Emberling Rod. So this thing has been getting buffed up quite a bit patch after patch. And by having the Emberling Rod, it lets you get Verdant extremely quickly. It lets you get Toxic extremely quickly, depending on which way you want to use it. And it also lets you get Invoker extremely quickly, allowing you to have some incredible late game damage as this goes on, plus a safety net due to the shield in the late game. With getting 4 Invokers, it's the only way you can truly do it without any imprints. So it is definitely a valuable way to go. The big thing is getting Scion, but the only other thing to mention is that this is a very expensive composition. So a lot of your late game carries here is the Duelef, is the Aphisto. That is 2 tier 5 fully evolved Illuvials. You can still do well without them being fully evolved, but of course you might end up losing Invoker status. Like if you go down here with the Sinolf, that's okay, it's still an Invoker. But if you go down here with the Octius, you're not getting Invoker yet, so you have to find the fully evolved Aphisto to truly get that full Invoker combination going. But even still, 3 Invoker, if you have, say, Sepphoris, the Ranger, plus the Sinolf, you can still get tons and tons of damage and being able to shut down some of these other teams before they really get an opportunity to ramp up. It is very, very good, and it makes the top 5 here, and number 5 here today, or this week. So number 4 here for this week is Aegis Toxic. It returns from the list from last week. Similar style, you're just basically trying to turn your Rip Lance into an absolute death machine. Get yourself a nature weapon. The nature fighter weapon is the one I like the best personally, because again, as soon as you get yourself a Riptor, bind your Ranger to the Riptor, and you have Berserker, so you can absolutely fire up your Rip Lance later. You can also add on, say, a Greater Monkier to get yourself another Berserker on board, and you will be able to hit like a truck. One way you can also do this, if you don't want to go the nature and fighter routes, but you want to go a little bit more heavier into Aegis, if you happen to get Ripple Flail, you can absolutely do that as well. You just have to bind yourself instead to your Archelion, and this will get you Toxic Aegis up to level 3, if I do recall correctly. And then you can turn your Rip Lance into an absolute monster even more so. More all in onto the Aegis, it's more all in onto one unit. But again, if your main composition is just focusing on trying to get Rip Lance to go nuts, whether it be the fighter way with the Nature Sword to add more Berserker, or going for the tankier option with the Ripple Flail, binding it again to your Archelion to go for multiple Aegis. That is another way you can do it, but you have to position yourself so that all of the buffs are going into that Rip Lance, which sounds simple in theory, but it is actually surprisingly difficult at times, depending on what you're going up against. A couple of other additions, of course, to this team is a Sinolf or a Duelef. That is just extra. If you hit everything and you're in the late game, adding on the Duelef is just a very nice choice. You can add on Tsunami as well if you get Flood into this, giving you a little bit of extra sustain, also allowing you to get the double empath so you can get a little bit of additional shielding. Aegis Toxic making a return here, number 4. Yes, number 3 on the list here for our top teams for this week in the IPL is the Verdant Vanguard squad. This was one that was used a ton last week, with everybody still really trying to get adjusted to the patch, wasn't necessarily ready with the same playstyles, so they were using teams of old. However, there are still a lot of players that are extremely good with Rogue that essentially force this, but can get away with it a little bit because it's not as contested as it used to be. Nowhere near as often played. And again, your idea is you're just trying to scoop up a bunch of rogues nice and early, get the Verdant Cleaver. That is a must for this composition, unfortunately. So with the Verdant Cleaver constantly getting nerfed over and over and over again, this team will slowly but surely start to fizzle out. But as it stands right now, it is still okay, it still does do well, and it can still win you games, especially if the augments fall in your favor. And you can load up your Slash-In, load up your Malura, which, granted, Malura a lot of times is seen more so as or it's meant to be a tank, of course, but I've seen people start putting Omega Power onto it. I've seen them put damage and sustain augments onto this thing, where the Malura basically becomes a secondary carry to the Slash-In. But in the best case scenario, it is runaway Slash-In, basically, as we've seen time and time again over the last couple of patches. And then all these rogues, you get the Winks in there as well. You can go up to Quinks if you really wanted to, just for a little bit of additional assistance in terms of crowd control. And then the Gnarl, of course, is the one holding the line. You get the Twine. As soon as you get Twine, you're good. But optimally, you find Gnarl so it can hold them in place a little bit longer. Verdant Puddle right in the middle of the floor. And then when the Gnarl finally dies, all of your rogues are kind of converging onto the center, where they are constantly fighting within a Verdant Puddle of sustainability. So it definitely helps. But again, this is still pretty heavily reliant onto your drone augments as well. You want to find combat rhythm, for example, get that extra sustain and damage when you get eliminations, just Omnivamp in general, and you really need to find the right augments. If you get stuck with just tank augments or strictly Omega Power, it could be problematic. Omega Power is still going to be nice for when Ramp Fight comes around, but again, that's in the later game. If things go your way, this team can still absolutely perform, but it's nowhere near as popular as it used to be. Number 2 for this week in the IPL 1000 was the return of Harbinger Steam. So we have, once again, you get yourself the Aqua Blaster nice and early. In particular, you can do this with other water weapons, but I think the most success was with the Aqua Blaster, because you can pair it up with your Axon, give yourself Harbinger extremely early into the game, pick up a Caradulo for a little bit of extra water, pick up a Riptorus. This can be a secondary carry if things go your way, but that's not the focus of your team in this instance. It's all on Umber to be your absolute one-dog show here, to be the super carry of the team. It does require, again, you need the right augments, you need drone augments to go your way as well, because this is not anywhere near as effective if you do not hit Omnivamp, at least with one of your drone augments, something like your combat rhythm, or even just the raw Omnivamp that does come out with one of those augments. Stacking attack speed can sometimes work, but the main thing is you want, at the end of this battle, Umber shines the greatest at the end of a fight. It is a clutch master, basically, here, with Steam constantly giving you buffs, and buffing you up constantly. If you have combat rhythm and you're getting more damage, and Omnivamp buffing you up, and you just become absolutely unstoppable, and it can be pretty brutal. It is not uncommon nowadays that I see one of these Umbers, for example. But of course, with this as well, you have a couple of options. Duelef is going to be the next best partner, because Duelef can help you deal with the front line much quicker. But again, does not mind if this battle goes a little bit longer. It is unfortunate that you have to get all the way to Duelef in order to get Steam to make that partnership really work. It is still a very good late game carry and a late game target once you've secured your Umber. Then after that, in terms of anything additional, Of course, with the water weapon as well, the Aqua Blaster or your water weapon of choice, you would then have 6 waters. You can add 2 more to give yourself some more, up to maybe 8 water to make it so that that Umber and Duelef and the rest of your squad just hits that much harder. So you can bring on Flood for a little bit of extra healing, for example. We can bring in a Penguin, for example, and give your Umber a dive buddy. Like, it's absolutely possible, and you would get the 8 water, and it'd be absolutely incredible. Heck, if you were able early to get lucky, you can find yourself with maybe Axodon, Gyaradulox, or whatnot. I wouldn't roll for them, per se, but if you happen to get them, by all means, that just makes things so much nicer. And then Mamu is here for an additional Harbinger buff. This will let you get up to 3 Harbinger, but near the end of the game, you're going to want to bind yourself to your Singe or your Flare or Seer, whatever you happen to have. That is going to then make your Ranger Steam, so you'll have 2 Steam relatively quickly if you're still waiting on Duelef to show up. And then late game, if you do end up getting lucky with getting Duelef, 3 Steam will be online. This team is very, very good. We saw this a ton, especially early in the IPL Grand Finals. People were actually a little bit reluctant to play any other compositions because they've seen how crazy Umber can be. But it was very, very noticeable that Umber was a must-pick unit or a highly contested unit. So it made it a little bit difficult there for everybody. Your top team, once again, for the second week in a row here from the IPL 1000 is Arcanite Inferno by a long shot. But it really didn't show its face in the Grand Finals until like game number 3. Then everybody was trying to push for this. This team right now is just absolutely bonkers. It has flexibility. It has tons and tons and tons and tons of damage. And if this team is left uncontested, it will win the lobby even against water. But the big problem that we are seeing is that a lot of people, of course, know about this. They are going for the Arcanite Inferno build, but they are also realizing they're getting heavily contested doing so. So they're trying to either make spin-offs of this build, or they're playing water instead, expecting that these players are going to be contested. Because I'll tell you what, if it gets to a point where the front line is built, a Scoriox is made, and a Monarch is made as well, it feels like it's Jover. It's basically done at this point here. I mean, it is not unbeatable by any means, but it is so tough to take down right now, especially if you add on some of these additional ones. I only have 6 of the Illuvials up here. You can absolutely add on way more. You need a bit of a beefier front line and you want to have an additional Magma possibly. You can absolutely add the Granite combo of Goliant and Tianti. And because you're going for the Boomerang 9 times out of 10, what you want to end up doing is giving this to a Scion. So the obvious one in this instance here is to go and pair it up with, say, your Ace that you end up finding rather early, and you would get Inferno Arcanite extremely quickly. But you have flexibility with this. You can absolutely give this, or bind your Ranger with this weapon to, say, your Tianti, and now you have 3 Magma. It is a way that you do it and give up the Inferno. At the same time, Inferno otherwise doesn't really get procced until Rampfire is fully evolved. And Inferno seems to be really, really good right now. So to make it, I guess, not too complicated, basically, pick yourself up the Fire Boomerang, you would bind yourself to your Ace, or even to your Scoriox. You would have a Inferno already procced up, which is constantly ticking away damage at your opponents. You're basically just kind of cruising from there. Protect the Scoriox. You don't have to bunker up. Just make sure that you're positioning yourself properly away from any spellcasters. Don't put yourself into the middle of a Duelef beam or something along those lines. But if you can position yourself properly, this will flourish nicely. But again, no Boomerang, no problem. There's a reason why Railu is here. So what you can then end up doing... Oh crap, I didn't get the Boomerang. What am I possibly going to do? Am I cooked? No, there is other ways to do this. You can pick up the Fire Gauntlet as well. bind yourself to your Railu instead, and now you still have Arcanite Inferno. So there is just so much benefit right now to go for fire. There are plenty of ways that you can get flexible with this, like start off with Arcanite Inferno. It could then turn into Arcanite Shock. It could then turn into Arcanite Magma. You have so much flexibility and so much damage, and that is why it is the most popular team right now in professional play in the IPL 1000. Now, of course, big thank yous to the IPL team, the back-end team, for collecting the data and keeping track of this so that I can share this all with the community and hopefully help jumpstart you in your ranked play, knowing at least a couple of team compositions that you can go for. If you like this, of course, by all means, whether it be following on Twitch or subscribing on YouTube, would love to absolutely have you on board. Come say hi next time you happen to see me live or something like that. But thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.